Hey, have you ever felt constrained by not having enough dough to spend on your marketing? Well, fear not. Today's guest was in that exact boat. I stress was. He got to the point of spending $1 million a year on just one marketing channel. Then something very cool happened.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Australia's #1 marketing show. I'm your host, Timbo Reid. You, so much more importantly, are a motivated business owner ready to crank out some great marketing, to build that baby of yours into the empire it deserves to be. That's exactly why this show exists. And we're lovingly brought to you by two wonderful companies, Net Registry, who are there to get your online marketing sorted. That's what they do. They've got some very cool new offers over at netregistry.com.au/Timbo. And we're also brought to you by the good folk at 99 Designs, where you can get a design you love guaranteed in 7 days, which is pretty cool. And they've also got an exclusive listener offer. Head over to 99designs.com/ guess what? Timbo. That's right. Not guess what, Timbo. You know what I mean. Hey, big show today. I chat with this fellow, right, who grew his business on a shoestring marketing budget, then to have it recently acquired by SurveyMonkey for a very pretty penny. And he shares exactly how he did that. Got to love that. I share some listener feedback and I've got some guest feedback. I got a video, a thank you video from a guest recently who's been blown away by the response they've had after appearing on this show. Gee, I love that. Play that later in the show. And I've got a quote. Well, it's not so much a quote. I've got an analogy. It's a donut analogy. And it explains social media, that dark art we all call social media. Got to love a donut analogy. Hey, there is plenty of marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing HQ. So let's get stuck right in.
Join the Small Business Big Marketing community and have your marketing questions answered by other motivated business owners, including Timbo, over at crankmymarketing.com.
So, how's your week been? Hope it's been a ripper. Hope you're making money. I hope you're saving money. And I hope your marketing is working exceptionally well. If you're listening to this show on a regular basis and implementing, then I'm guessing you are in that category. I've had an interesting week. I caught up with a mate whose business ain't going as well as it could. We had a very interesting chat. Went all around the place. One of the things I touched on with him, though, after treading on eggshells for 5 minutes, was his lack of professionalism. I told him he should up the way he dressed. Not that I'm any fashionista, let me tell you. But sometimes we've got to look at the way we present ourselves and maybe up the stakes there. I told him to get a voicemail. It's good to have a voicemail. He didn't have one. And I told him to get a personalised email. He had a Gmail. At Gmail. It looks messy. It looks messy when you run a business. Got to have a more personalised one that's about your business name. At yourbusiness.com or .au or wherever you're from. I spoke at a conference in Perth on Friday. Thank you for everyone who came up and said g'day. Had a bit of a photo opportunity. I love the photo opportunity. Also did a little podcasting session after my keynote, which was really good. Spoke to about 50 or so who hung around to talk podcasting. Lots of great questions there. Hey, while I was in Perth, I went to this bar late one night. Yes. Very cool bar called Sneaky Tony's. And boy, oh boy, does Sneaky Tony operate on the marketing strategy of scarcity. The place is hard to find. There's no signage. There's a door covered in graffiti that has just this little peep-through slit that they check you out before they let you in. You've got to find a password on Facebook to even get in there. Very cool. I'm trying to track down Sneaky Tony because I want to interview him. I want to find out his story. If you know him, let me know. And great thing happened on the forum this week. Lukey, my new co-owner of the Small Business Big Marketing Forum, did a 20-minute video reviewing one of our forum members' websites and offered a whole lot of ways to increase their search engine rankings. That was done for free for a forum member. Hey, that's pretty cool, isn't it? And I know Lukey's planning to do a few more of them every now and then. So membership does have its privileges. If you're not a member, why not? Head over to crankmymarketing.com and we will see you inside and answer your most pressing marketing questions. Hope you had a great week and that the coming one is looking like a beauty. Now, it's about this time where I drop in a pre-recorded, yes, I know, shocking, isn't it, net registry ad or a sponsor ad. But I've got this wonderful email from Stacey Morgan, listener Stacey Morgan, about 99 Designs. She says, hey, Timbo, long-time listener, I just rebranded my dance school in Port Macquarie Performing Arts, it's called. I use 99 Designs. Hey, you weren't wrong, Timbo, she says. I got a design that I loved. Lots of exclamation marks. I went on to independently contract a designer I found on 99 Designs through the projects button. And I got another logo designed for another program I run called Twinkle Toes and Mini Men. I like the program name. I love that logo too, she says. I have listened to you talk about 99 Designs for a number of years now and have always wanted to try them. I wished I'd done it earlier, she says. It was an awesome experience all round and great value for money. Look, it is. I know I bang on about them, but I have good reason. If you want something designed, head over to 99designs.com/Timbo, get your $99 upgrade and a design you will love. Stacey did. Support for this show comes from Net Registry, a one-stop shop for getting your online marketing sorted. Verity Ma, their Chief Marketing Officer, recently told me this story of a very happy mechanic.
So one of my favourite stories of customers that I heard was a salesperson was talking to a mechanic and he was talking about what sort of email he would like to have and what kind of hosting, whether he wants cloud or cPanel hosting. And the mechanic just said, look, I don't care, build my website, here's my phone number, make my phone ring and send me the bill. And that was the last we heard of him. He didn't provide us content. He didn't provide us any details about his business. We had his contact details. We wrote all the content and we just got his phone ringing and sent him the bill.
Net Registry, where happy mechanics go to grow their business online. Visit netregistry.com.au or give them a buzz on 1300 638 734 and tell them Timbo sent you.
Get on Timbo's mailing list over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.
Righto, let's get stuck into today's guest because we've got a lot of marketing gold still to cover. Now, this fireside chat is with a fellow Aydin Mirzaee, who co-founded an online survey company called Fluidware that was recently scooped up by SurveyMonkey. Got to be happy with that. SurveyMonkey being the 90-pound gorilla of online survey companies. Now, this isn't an interview about online surveys. Phew, he says, wiping his brow. No, this is all about how to effectively market a business when you're on a shoestring budget, when you got no dough. In Aydin's first few years, money was real tight. He was a startup. But through some smart marketing, he actually got to the point of spending $1 million a year on online ads. Nice, huh? So in this little chat I have with him, he shares a very sneaky use of Twitter. He's got a lunch and learn strategy that did him well in the early days. He shares a launch strategy his wife used in her lingerie business. Yes, we digress down that path of lingerie. But when it appears, you got to take it. And then we come back to Aydin and we talk about some more shoestring marketing strategies. Got to love it. I started off by asking Aydin, what is his superpower?
That's a good question. My superpower is to be unrealistically optimistic.
A glass half full kind of guy. Yeah,
really full.
How's that working for you?
It turns out I'm wrong a lot of times, but when I'm right, it pays off.
Right. So how's it play out? Give me an example of how that plays out in your business life.
Well, in my business life, I mean, just going back when, I had a really great job, paying really well back in 2008, and everything was on the up and up, and I just decided to leave and start a company. And everyone told me that I was crazy. Actually, my dad didn't talk to me for 3 months when it first happened because he thought it was such a bad idea. But again, just being unrealistically optimistic. And, about 8 years later, we built this company, grew it to over 70 people and staff, upwards of 10 million in sales, and we sold it to SurveyMonkey.
And at what point did you look back at all those people, including your old man, and go, told you so?
Yeah, so I think probably 3 to 4 years in. It's interesting with any small business, and it's not just Fluidware. I have an uncle that runs a pizza shop. My wife runs a boutique lingerie store, and with all these cases, it was really fun. Actually, she had a crazy launch party, which I'll talk about in a bit, which I think is a very good way to basically earn a lot of publicity and do some cheap marketing. But I think in general, it takes about 3 years for you to get to that break-even point. It takes 5 years for you to be making decent money. And then it takes about 7 years for you to be really profitable.
I want to talk about how you got to be extremely profitable and end up selling to SurveyMonkey. But just tell me that time when you did leave a well-paying corporate job. Your dad stopped talking to you for 3 months. Clearly, a man who holds a grudge. What was that like? Did you question yourself, or is your overflowing optimism does that kill everything?
No, I mean, you do end up questioning yourself, right? So, I mean, it basically starts out from, you have how many months of, leeway, like how much money do you have in the bank account and how much is that going to last you? And so it's pretty optimistic when you first start, but then as month one passes by, and then you look at the bank account and you say, we're down to, let's say, five more months only. And are we any closer to earning any revenue? And so every month that passes by with no revenue, it starts to get more stressful. And at times you do question. But it gets to a point where you start thinking that, you know what? Right now, I basically have no choice but to succeed because, if I don't, everybody else will be right. And that'll be something I'll have to deal with for the rest of eternity. And so it's one of those things they say, if you want to take the island, you have to burn the boats. And, I certainly burned the boats.
And did you, I love that saying, did you really burn the boats? Did you really not look back and go, we're here, guys, we're not going anywhere, look forward?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it was. I knew one way or another I would find a way to succeed. How big the success would be. I mean, that I couldn't have predicted. But I knew I would just do whatever it took. And, I would stick at it for as long as I could. I had to do a lot of things along the way to extend the runway. I had to do, side contracts here and there.
Sell lingerie.
Yeah, well, no, that came later. So it's funny. So my wife actually had a government job that was, well, it wasn't wife at that time, but girlfriend at that time. And while she had this steady job, I was doing this risky stuff. And then, once, my thing took off, she had the opportunity to do the more risky thing.
Uh-huh. Okay, so you got to share. You got to both experience what it's like to take a risk. Behind every great man is a great woman, they say.
Absolutely, yeah.
You'll have to make that speech one day. So Aydin, let's talk about this. You co-founded Fluidware in 2008, grew it to 70 people, $10 million in sales before selling to SurveyMonkey in August 2014. Just remind me how much? So
there is a public number.
Give us the private number.
Yeah, ask me in another, let's call it 2 years.
Right.
And then I'll be able to tell you.
So you got to tell us, what was the public number?
So the public number was stated as over 20 million.
Nice. Now let's talk marketing, Aydin.
Sure.
What role did marketing play in making all that happen?
So marketing, basically marketing was what made it all happen in a lot of ways because, at the end of the day, we spent all this time building the software product, but really getting the word out. It was to a large extent a marketing play. I mean, when you have a product that's low priced, so our original product was Fluid Surveys, and it was priced at $19 a month starting. Mm-hmm. And at that price point, you can't really have a sales force that's going to go out and sell person to person, right? So this is all, you have to rely on marketing and in particular inbound marketing to do a lot of the work.
Okay, so where did you start? I'm going to guess with a startup like yours, you've got either zero or very modest marketing budget. What was your first marketing play?
Yeah, so we basically had, zero marketing budget, mostly because we were a bootstrap startup. We never raised any external financing. So for us, it all had to be bootstrapped. There was a couple of things that we did, and a couple of which I think were pretty innovative. So at the time, funny enough, obviously, we had Fluid Surveys, and to a large extent, SurveyMonkey was a competitor. And so we, one of the things that we started doing was we started monitoring social media. Twitter was, for example, starting to gain ground. And, the interesting thing that we found was Twitter had also a great search. And so you could actually, search for SurveyMonkey. And inevitably, there are people on the internet that you can find. And, we basically got to find a lot of customers that were using their product. And maybe we're looking for additional features, for example, that...
Right, so I'm going to guess what you're doing here. I'm on Twitter. I'm using SurveyMonkey. And I've just tweeted out, just created the best survey on SurveyMonkey. And that's come up on your timeline, and you've responded to me going, here's a 20% discount coupon for Fluid Surveys.
You got it. That's what we did. And so...
How very cheeky.
So here's the thing, will this exact same thing work today? Probably not for, survey software as much, but certainly for, local searches. So for example, if people are, using, if you're from Ottawa, like I am, and if you're searching for things with the hashtag of Ottawa or for the location of Ottawa and, searching about a particular topic, that might be a way for you to find people who are talking in real time about something that you're selling. So that was certainly one way. And this is, one of the methods that we use to basically sort of sprinkle our influence. And the nice thing was chances are people who are on Twitter and all these social media platforms, chances are that they're already, more influential. They have followers. And so if they end up using your product, it's very likely that they'll tweet about it and you can basically reach out to their audience as well.
So that's a roll the sleeves up strategy. And just to explain it, because I know some of my listeners aren't that Twitter savvy. Twitter still eludes them. In fact, it still eludes me trying to find a bricks and mortar business owner that's nailing Twitter. But what you've done is quite simply you have created a search, an ongoing search, so that any time, for example, someone mentions at SurveyMonkey, it pops up in your timeline and you respond to that. What, did you have someone sitting there sort of monitoring it, or is it something you went into once a day? How'd that play out?
Yes, that's a good question. So this was, when we were very small and just getting off the ground. And so it was just me. I had, at that time, I had TweetDeck, which is a software program that you can install on your computer. And I, just like you check your email, I would, occasionally look at that. And by the way, it wasn't only SurveyMonkey. I was also searching for, other competitors in the field, but also people looking for survey software. Because believe it or not, people actually do post things like, hey, I'm looking to buy blah. Any recommendations. And they're not looking for vendors to reply. They're looking for their friends to reply. But you can obviously be opportunistic about that and reply at the same time.
Was there a particular style of reply, remembering we've only got 140 characters here, that worked better? Because, to Gary Vaynerchuk's kind of jab, 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 right hook theory, coming in with a right hook, which is buy from me, doesn't necessarily work up front. What did a typical response, was the typical response, here's a 20% discount, or was it something softer?
So you want to be funny, usually. You want to be funny and unique because you are intruding in someone's conversation, right? So a lot of times, they're basically, they might be asking, for example, I want to buy, I don't know, let's say, what is the best place to go skiing, as an example, right? And let's say you have a ski resort. So I would reply with something like, for example, if you're looking for something absolutely amazing, absolutely ridiculously amazing, that would probably be us, with a smiley face at the end, right. or something along those lines. You want to be comical. You don't want things to be taken too seriously, because at the end of the day, you are kind of like stepping into an external conversation, and you want to be conscious of that.
I think that's a really, really important social media insight, is that social media is people having conversations online. If you enter that conversation as a business, you should enter it as a person from a business and be conversational. To the point, I'm wondering, I'm getting detailed here, but this is a lovely marketing strategy you're explaining. Was your Twitter profile a photo of you or a Fluid Survey logo?
So it was a Fluid Surveys logo.
Is that a no-no?
So it's not necessarily a no-no for a software company, like us.
Because you're all geeks.
Yeah. So, I mean, we really wanted the Fluid Surveys brand name to be that and have a personality associated with it and so on and so forth. I mean, you can also do it the other way, obviously, where you reply as a person. But the only thing is then you probably would want to disclose that you work for the company in some way, because, people will look you up, and it's probably a good idea to say that up front.
Cool. Okay, so let's move on, Aydin. You've realised Twitter is a great platform to start. You've still got modest marketing budget. What was your next step in the marketing?
I think the next step in particular, there's two other things that I do want to talk about. And
feel free to bring lingerie into the discussion at any time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, talking about, specifically on the lingerie store, one of the things that my wife Amanda did, and for those in the audience that are curious, her website's amandamay.ca. But essentially, when she was launching, she had a big launch party. And that was really interesting, because at the launch party, one of the things that she did was she reached out to the mayor of Ottawa and said, hey, we're doing this launch party and we'd love for you to, come in and basically cut the ribbon. And then, as soon as, and fortunately enough, the mayor agreed that it would be worthwhile to go to this lingerie launch party, which was interesting.
Did she know him? Her?
No, not at all. I mean, this was basically a random contact.
Wow.
And, obviously we talked about the launch party of, how it was going to be really big, and there was going to be live models at the
As opposed
launch
to dead
party.
ones?
Right, exactly. Wearing the lingerie. And, the other strategy around that was obviously, models can cost quite a bit to have at an event. So what she did was she compensated them in free lingerie. Mm-hmm. So that was another sort of bootstrapping strategy. But then once she got that, and the mayor was coming, all of a sudden you can reach out to all of the local media sources and basically get them to show up at the event. You can tell them about that the mayor was there, and basically we had live models and things like that. And all of a sudden, basically, at least from a local perspective, reaching out to this local media, they can report on this, and that's basically your audience. So it's a really great way for getting a lot of people to know about you in one shot.
Now, Aydin, one of the strategies that you mentioned in researching what you did were these lunch and learn sessions. Were they successful for you, and what are they?
Yeah, so Lunch and Learns, for us, were very successful, and it just goes around the idea of this whole event marketing thing. I mean, similar to the lingerie store that did the launch party, there are other events that you can do depending on the type of business that you have. But for us, we wanted to basically reach people who were in the survey industry, and so we kind of knew what kind of job titles these people would have. And essentially, what we did is we used a lot of sort of public directories where you could find out, who works at a given organization, and you can find out their titles. And we tried to find all the people who had the job title that we were looking for. And then once you know the name of the person and, once you know the company that they're working at, it's not hard for you to guess their email address. Mm-hmm. And so what we ended up doing was, spending a lot of time, and, this was early days, so it did require a lot of work, putting together these large email lists, almost basically doing this one by one and crafting these email lists and essentially inviting them to a free lunch and learn session where we would provide lunch and at the same time we would showcase our software. And so people could come in, have a free lunch, and learn about this great new tool that we've launched. And that worked out really well. We did it on a very low budget. We found a place in a co-working space that would rent us a room that would fit, 12 or so people for $50 an hour. And we would order sandwiches from Subway. So the whole event would cost us, $200, $250. But on the other end of it, one sale could have been in the many thousands of dollars. So
how was that? Because I thought you were selling a $19 monthly service.
That's correct. So when we work with organizations, if they were larger organizations,
tailored solution.
We would basically send them an enterprise solution.
Yeah, right. What are getting bumps on seats at anything, a lunch and learn or an after work drinks, whatever it is, it's never easy. What was the enticement to get people there besides the subs?
Yeah, so this was pretty targeted. So this was again people who we knew needed surveys, and obviously we had a product at that time that really sort of met some unmet needs for these people. Mm-hmm. So I think there was a lot of curiosity with it, but we also made sure to organize the lunch and learn in a location downtown where it would be very easy for a lot of people to go to that one location. So it would be 15 minutes for people to get to that location. And so that's something that worked, really well for us. And we ended up doing probably in the first 3 years, maybe 20 to 25 of these. So it was something that worked well enough that we kept doing it.
Now, I am going to move. Well, tell me if I'm going to miss any major marketing play, but I want to get to the point later on in Fluidware's life where you're spending $1 million a year just on online ads.
Yeah. There's one more thing that I'll mention that I thought was pretty cool that we used to do. And that was specifically around, it just goes back to content marketing. So what we would end up doing is, we had a blog that we would obviously update all the time. And we would make sure that, the blog articles we wrote, we would do research on what keywords to use before we actually wrote the blog post. So this is particularly useful, and it can be quite an art and science when you're doing it for something more generic like online survey software. But one of the advantages that you have when you're a local and small business, so again, taking the example of the lingerie store, if you search for something like lingerie Ottawa, all of a sudden, so Amanda's store, for example, pops up as number one. Mm-hmm. And so it's really interesting how you can do a lot better in SEO if you start to use local terms, and in particular, your city name as part of the content of your website. And so, no matter, even if you're a brick and mortar business, it's really funny, but I would say that probably 60% of the people who find out about Amanda's store find out about it online with these sort of local search terms. Again, very, very powerful method.
Let's just dig deep there, because I'm glad you mentioned it. Blogging's one of those things. When I talk about it, sometimes I feel like I'm talking about a very old-fashioned marketing technique. But, you know, blogs were around when the internet was invented. Blogs were one of the first things we saw, yeah? So they've been around a long time, but I still think there's a large amount of businesses, big and small, that aren't blogging to their detriment, because blogging's at most the easiest way to keep your website fresh and up to date. It's the easiest way to share helpful content, opinions, to make your customers' life easier, more informed. Yet many don't do it.
What I would say is that, first of all, you're absolutely right about keeping your website up to date. You know, the worst thing that can happen is when someone comes to your site and it looks like the website, hasn't been updated in 3 years.
Man.
It doesn't look fresh. It doesn't give people the idea that you're still in business even. So that's an important thing. But the other part of it is that people actually search for your product, and then they search for it on a local basis. So by updating your blog often and talking about topics that are related to whatever product or service that you're offering, it shows expertise, but people actually end up searching for those exact things. And when they come upon your site and they know that it's something local, they basically end up actually even coming to your store and purchasing things in the store. So,
well, particularly if someone's doing a search that is geographically tagged, like with a suburb, they're kind of like closer to buying. They're not just necessarily researching. So what does a blog post then read like or look like about a lingerie store in Ottawa? Do you start the first paragraph as a lingerie store in Ottawa? We find that many women, blah, blah, blah. Or how do you create such a targeted post?
Yeah, so I think so it's a couple of things. So first of all, on your website, you want to have your contact us section with a proper address. On the website itself, this is one of the things that I would recommend doing. So, for example, for the lingerie store, the title of the entire website is Ottawa's premier boutique lingerie store, right? So automatically, Ottawa is the first word in the title of the entire website. So by creating more blog posts, the advantage is the more content that you have on your website and the more content that there is about lingerie, automatically Google is going to say, this website seems to have a lot of, content about lingerie, and they're tagging themselves as being from Ottawa. So when someone searches for something very specific, it doesn't have to be just lingerie Ottawa. It can be something like bra fitting Ottawa, for example, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it takes all those signals and it can identify that this is the website that we should show first.
Yeah.
So,
and the other thing too, we need to be mindful of anyone listening thinking, but I could never rank well on Google because everyone else is doing this. Google updated their algorithm a few months ago with an update called Pigeon, which favours local businesses. Google want to deliver relevant local results if you are searching locally. So I think it puts us in a really good position. Aydin, I just want to move on, mate, to spending $1 million a year on online ads. That obviously didn't happen overnight, but you must have cracked the code in order to figure out that, hey, if we spend $1 on online advertising, we get $2 back.
That's the key formula. What we call it is, cost of customer acquisition. So once you have to figure out what that is, but secondly, you have to make sure that your ALV or average lifetime value is higher than your cost of acquisition. Now, the interesting thing about most businesses is that it's not necessarily even about the first purchase that the person makes. So someone could, for example, from our perspective, someone would come in and purchase a survey license, and then they might use it for 3 months and then cancel. And then, this time next year, they might come back and then resubscribe. So it's one of those things that your business has to have a little bit of history so that you can know what you can expect for the average lifetime value of a customer to be. And it really depends on how you want to evaluate it. So if it takes, so let's say that if your average lifetime value is $200 because, a person will spend roughly $100 a year, and you can expect them to be a customer for 2 years. that's $200. So that means that you can spend anything less than $200 so that you can acquire a customer. So once you figure out that formula, you can start acquiring more customers at that same cost of user acquisition. But the tricky thing is it's not a infinite formula. So there aren't an infinite number of customers that you can purchase at, let's say, $100. So there is a limit to this. And so every time, you figure out a new tactic, you can get another pool of customers, but it's something that you have to evaluate all the time.
Now, you're running all these ads. You are starting to build a serious business. Tell us about the day the phone call came from your mates over at SurveyMonkey with the big checkbook open.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't quite like that per se.
Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah, so I think it's one of those things that obviously we'd been coming across each other in a lot of ways through the course of time. I think the other really important thing that we did was we decided to focus on the enterprise space. So we realized that SurveyMonkey was the dominant player in the do-it-yourself market. So in the $19 a month or $29 a month, and you know what? We just realized at some point that we just can't beat them in that. And so what we decided to do was we started to focus primarily on enterprise customers. And so our product started to morph and we started building features that enterprise customers would want. And our marketing started to focus more on those sorts of customers. And, we started to become basically one of the major players in the enterprise market. And at some point, when we came in contact with SurveyMonkey, we realized that we really were to a large extent addressing different segments of the market, and it just made sense for us to become one company so we could address the full spectrum. It wasn't an overnight thing. We were aware of each other for a very long time, and at some point it just made sense for us to team up.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Well, it must have been an exciting time nonetheless. And I look forward to having you back, Aydin. On what particular date can you release the number?
That's funny. I'll let you know as soon as I can.
Well, it's inspiring stuff, buddy. When someone builds a company from scratch, gets a tap on the shoulder from a much larger brand with the checkbook out, it's wonderful and clearly hard earned. So, Aydin, thanks for sharing some great marketing strategies and all the best for the future.
Yeah, very glad to do this, and thanks for having me.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did bringing it to you. You can hit Aydin up on Twitter, by the way, at AYDIN. Tell him you heard him on the show. And if you want to check out his wife's lingerie, wife's lingerie business, you with me? You still with me? AmandaMay.ca is her website. Now, I want to share my top 3 tips because we've got lots more to cover. Yeah, I've got that guest who's just over the moon about appearing on the show, and I've got a social media analogy involving donuts. So stick with us. But my top 3 learnings from a fireside chat with Aydin, thanks to the very good folk at Net Registry. Get your online marketing sorted. And 99 Designs. Design your love, guaranteed. Learning number 1. I liked his use of Twitter. Identify those peeps who use keywords in their tweets and hit them up. Nicely hit them up with offers to come across and use your services or buy your product. Very clever. It's a bit of a kind of roll the sleeves up strategy, but that's okay. We're talking about when we've got no dough to spend on our marketing. Number 2, love his launch party idea. Invite someone of note, maybe not the mayor. It's not the most exciting person going around. Still, someone of note in your community and then use that in your media release. I think the real models thing would have helped, the fact that they had real lingerie models. But that's just me being a bloke, I suppose. Number 3, blog. Why aren't you blogging? Are you blogging? I hope so. Not going to go into it again. I've mentioned it a few times on this show. If you're not blogging, start. Don't listen to me. Take Aydin's word for it. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview. I'm loving the listener comments that you guys are leaving in the show notes. I'm responding to them all. I'm getting my guests to respond to them all. It's good. It's how it should be. So go to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com, look for episode 258 and leave me your thoughts. Righto, so as I said, I've not got so much as a marketing quote for you this episode, but it's an analogy. It's an analogy that uses donuts to explain the differences, stick with me here, between social media channels. All right? We'll start with Facebook. Facebook would be like, please like my donuts. Twitter, I'm making #donuts. Pinterest, here's a donut recipe. Instagram, here's a vintage photo of my donuts. LinkedIn, my skills include donut making. YouTube, here's my dog eating my donut. Another YouTube one could be how to eat donuts. Spotify, listen to my favourite donut making songs of all times. WordPress or blogging, my top 10 donut flavours. I would add salted caramel to the top of that, by the way. And Google+, poor old Google+. Share donuts with Google employees is how we use Google+. So yeah, well, it's kind of coming to an end, isn't it? Hey, I hope you enjoy the idea. I hope that helps you get your head around how to look at each of the social media thanks to that wonderful food group we lovingly know as donuts. Okay, so as I said, I got a thank you video from a past guest last week. The past guest was David Warren from Sydney Tall Ships, and he's got the Rock and the Boat outsourcing tours over there in the Philippines, and he has been absolutely wonderfully surprised by the amount of you listeners that have reached out to him to either go on one of his tours, his 3-day tours starting in Manila, and or utilising the outsourcing services that he's providing, from VAs to the designers to bookkeepers, you name it. It is exciting times. He's wrapped. So he sent me this video, which I've ripped the audio from. Take a listen.
Good afternoon, Timbo. It's David Warren speaking. I think I'm sending through a video message here. Public holiday here today. I've had back-to-back meetings all morning, one after the other. Your listeners, all of them want to come on the tour. Business owners with up to 70 people, through to diabetes professionals. It's been a most extraordinary week. For a long time, we went from 3 chats a week ago through to about 95 chats now so far, or just online chats. Appointments, invoices, people excited. We're making a big difference here. I wanted to say thank you for that. I've got a quieter afternoon. I'm going to start doing some of my own work. If you come in this afternoon, perhaps you could just send me an email or send me a Skype, and we'll get back in contact. Love to just say thank you for such an enormous change of direction for this world. The model's looking really well. Done.
Thank you, David, for those very, very kind words. Listeners, if you want to find out more about what David's up to, listen to episode 254 and 255 or hit him up on rockingtheboattours.com. Plenty of marketing gold coming up in the weeks and months ahead. Be sure to use NetRegistry to get all your online marketing sorted. New packages over at netregistry.com.au/Timbo and 99designs.com/Timbo to get a design you'll love guaranteed, with a nice little bonus thrown in for you as well. Hey, if you are serious about taking your marketing to the next level, join my inner circle over at crankmymarketing.com. Until next week, I'm Timbo Reid. Always have been, always will be. May your marketing be the best marketing. Bye for now.